Welcome to the Michael Blum Show, where we talk about things you don't want to talk about. We talk about sex. We talk about politics. We talk spirituality and substance abuse. Join us by calling 800-699-0980. Think, speak, and be heard. Here now is Michael Blum. Tonight we're doing our live recording from beautiful Boca Raton. It's gorgeous out. There's not a cloud in the ceiling, and we have a really good guest coming up with us. We're going to be talking about men tonight. If you follow the show at all, you know that from time to time we do these things, and we talk about men's issues, because I think that they're kind of today's society lost, and people have all sorts of questions that they want answered. If you're one of those kind of folks that wants your questions answered, we do have a number you can give us a call in. Number here tonight is 800-699-0980. Again, you can call me up, Dr. Mike, at 800-699-0980. I think that in today's society, it's kind of rough because, particularly for men, and I'm going to say even particularly for white men, even more difficult, because society has come up with toxic masculinity, and they push that point in universities. You can actually go ahead and do seminars on that. And to me, the whole thing is kind of moronic and nonsensical, because the things that people think make men toxic are the same things that make men great. It's not a matter of whether you're toxic or not. It's a matter of whether you're a good person or not. That's where it all comes from. If you're a terrible person and you're a guy, you're going to act like a terrible guy, and aggression is going to be part of it. And, unfaithfulness is going to become part of it. And all those things become part of it. You're not going to make a man better by making him more feminine. You got to make a man better by making him a better man. And I really think that's really what it's about. And it bothers me when I say, when I see people getting degrees in things like men in society and study. I got to tell you, folks, if you're out there, you're going to school right now, if your major course of action ends with the word study, you're screwed in life. You're screwed. You might as well get used to putting in light bulbs, because no one cares that you got your degree in gender fluidity or lesbian dance or any of these other crazy things. It just gets very, very nutty. You have to go ahead and kind of move it up into reality. And I have someone on the phone, not on the phone, actually someone we're going to be doing video with tonight, who's going to absolutely move it up and into reality with us tonight. I have the founding father of Real Men Connect. I have Dr. Joe Martin with us. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine, Michael. You have me cracking up, man. This is good. I'm already laughing. I haven't even started the interview yet.
Well, that's you got to take the good with the good. That's
That's right, man.
That's how it goes. So, was I particularly off base in what I just said in my intro?
No, I think that you're headed in the right direction, man. I love it. I love it. And I love talking about men's issues with other men.
Well, that's what it's about. So, folks, again, feel free to join us, 800-699-0980. Again, it's 800-699-0980. You come from a very eclectic past. I use the word eclectic because it's such a nice word to use than actually sometimes groveling into the actual truth of it all. I started working. When I started working, I was a musician. That's all I did. And then I became a school teacher. I taught neurologically impaired and emotionally disturbed people. And then I became a dentist. And now I'm semi-retired with that. And I pretty much do what I'd like, which is nice to be in that kind of position. But when I describe myself to people, if I really, really like them, I tell them that I'm eclectic. If I don't want to have much to do with them, I tell them I'm just skitzed. So I, have
Okay.
different things, and I can't focus at all. Now you come from. Tell me about your background. I want people to know really where it is that you came from.
Well, I came from not too far from where you are in Boca Raton. I'm from Miami, Florida, specifically. But when you tell somebody you're from Miami, Florida, it could be anywhere in Miami. But I tell them specifically, I grew up and I was born and raised in a place called Liberty City. in Miami, and it's an inner city ghetto in Miami that a lot of listeners are either familiar with. If they're older, they're familiar with Liberty City. If they've ever heard of Two Live Crew, the rap group,
Uh-huh.
and if they're a millennial, they know about Liberty City based on the video game, the infamous video game Grand Theft Auto, which one of the their I guess additions was based off that neighborhood. And I always tell kids when I'm talking to them, I say if they do a video game based on your neighborhood, that's not a good thing. That's not a compliment. And so that's where I'm from. That's where I was born and raised. I lived there until I graduated from high school.
Now, I'm curious if it's, I know a couple of other people from that area, believe it or not, that I've met that have seemed to, and I hate to use the term, but maybe it's the wrong term, you correct me, but kind of like get out of there. It's almost like there's a prison there that you need to get out of. And
No, I think that's an accurate depiction of Liberty City. I remember telling one of my friends when I was in high school that I told him, I said, take a good look at me because I'm never coming back. And he said, what you mean you're never coming back? I said, I may come back to visit, but I'm never going to live in this place. I said, I can't stand this place. And you're right. But a lot of people say that about the cities they grew up in because they want to get out because it's boring. There's not a lot to do. Well, when you want to get out of Liberty City, it's not because it's boring. It's because it's dangerous. And you feel that if you get out, you've actually survived it. Because by the time I reached the age of 16, I had lost six of my friends. Six of my friends had died, and usually to some type of violence. And so I remember praying a lot, saying, God, just let me make it to my 18th birthday. And I don't know what was magical about the age 18, but I just knew most of my friends wasn't making it to that age. So you're absolutely right. I got to get out of here. And I just survived Liberty City just to make it out.
how did you manage to do it? What was like the motivation for you to get out of there?
Desperation more than anything.
You reached the
People look
bottom?
at what I would, yeah. Well, it's not even reaching the bottom. It's more so that either I'm going to get out of here or I'm going to die here. Period. Either I'm going to end up going to jail, being shot or killed, or I'm going to make it out. And I get asked a lot of times the question, how'd you get out of there? I said, I still don't know, but I attribute it to basically my family, my faith, and some angels there I call angels who were sprinkled along the way who helped me get out of there. And when I say help me get out of there, they had no idea that I was suicidal from 12 to 16 years old. And so those angels would appear at the right moment to say the right thing, to do the right thing, to kind of keep me going until I was able to get out. So
Your
it's a pure desperation.
your angels, were they something that you saw? Is it something that came to you? Were they visions? Was it something you heard?
No, these are teachers. I'm talking real people you can
Oh.
touch. These are teachers, man.
I'm in the
No,
spiritual realm already. Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh no, that's the faith part. But no, the reality was my sister was one of those angels. We were so poor that she used to steal food from her fast food job just so we could eat. And when I say my sister was an angel, I couldn't stand my sister growing up because she was a girl and she was a
mhm.
year younger than me. And she was so close to age that she always thought she was the oldest and act like she was the oldest. But even though we would go at each other a lot, we always protected one another. But my sister, I don't know how she would know, but I guess she just knew that I wasn't eating, because my mom wasn't cooking and we didn't have
Sure.
food. And my sister would steal food from her job and she would give me the food and leave it out for me. Michael, just leave it out like I was a pet. And because she didn't want to embarrass me by giving it to me.
Sure.
And I would eat that food as if I was like a hostage, man. And so, and now you're talking about all these years later, now over gone close to 40 years later, my sister, she never brings it up. She never mentions it. And she's now a doctor now, but she never brings up, like, man, when I used to feed you when you were starving. And we have a very, very close bond because she saw me at my worst and she was always there for me. So even though she was my sister, she was an angel that I believe God put in my life because I don't know if I would have made it without her. But I had teachers like that. It was a guy who worked at a recreational park in our neighborhood. I consider him an angel, Coach Holcomb. And they didn't know they were angels, but they didn't
Mhm.
realize they gave me inspiration and drive to keep going just to make it to the next week, to make it to the next month, to get through the next year.
Were there men in your house? Would you have a father figure or a father or someone in the
No,
house?
no.
No.
And to kind of give you some context, Michael, and by the time I reached the age of 18, I only knew one family who had a father in the home.
Amazing.
One. And now let me give you some context for Liberty City. You're talking about thousands of people live in Liberty City, 5 high schools and 2 malls. I didn't meet a white child till I was 12. And so, but I only knew one family that had a dad in the home, and that family was dysfunctional too because the mom was a numbers runner, and the dad bootlegged videos out of his trunk. And so that was my vision of marriage. So I saw a lot of males in my community, a lot of males in my neighborhood, but very few men, if any men in my neighborhood. Now, it doesn't mean there weren't men in my life, but the ones who were in my life either abandoned me, abused me, neglected me, rejected me. When you mentioned in the intro about that toxic, I don't call it toxic. They were just like you said, bad men. They were men who they didn't know how to be men.
Yeah,
So I didn't
that's
call
it.
it toxic. So but that was most of the men in our community, and I use the term men loosely because I tell groups now when I speak to men's conferences that you're a male by birth, but you're a man by choice. You got to make some choices to step into manhood. That's not something that happens automatically.
Sure, it is, and it is a choice you need to make. Uh, we should talk about that a bit. Um, I'm just amazed. So basically, you had no food, no men in the house. Was there drugs also around? I mean, were you involved with drugs for a while? It would seem like be part of the
I
thing.
wasn't involved in drugs, but I was surrounded by drugs. I had family members who were drug dealers. Some of my best friends were drug dealers, and I was always exposed to it. Now I can tell you, I didn't sell drugs. I didn't do drugs, at least willingly. That's a whole nother story. But when I joke, and I'm not being funny when I joke, but the kids laugh at it, but I'm serious. I tell them that I say I knew enough about drugs that I know how to slice and dice and mix it and sell it if I wanted to, but I thought it was normal to know that. And I
Hmm.
think the most extreme instance in me not, and I'm thinking this is normal, that I was over a friend's house and in his back room is very, very cold. And I mean, it was freezing. And you got to understand in Liberty City, most people didn't have air conditioning. And so you imagine living in Miami in the humidity and no air conditioning, we all have
That seems
fans.
impossible. Seems
Yeah. But
impossible.
yeah, now it seems like how did we live like that? But he was like one of the few people in our neighborhood who had air conditioning. And I'm like, hey, this freezing cold is colder than a kindergarten room, a classroom. And the reason why it was so cold, because that's where he stashed his cocaine. And he had so much cocaine. I'm talking about trash bags filled with it. And of course, I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot of cocaine, not realizing the amount of cocaine that man had in that home. It could have been raided, and we could all been killed for
Yeah.
that amount of drugs. And so I was around it, and it was normal to me to see people shooting up and that kind of stuff. But no, by the grace of God, I never got involved in it, and was tempted to sell it based on my friends trying to push me into doing it because
Sure.
we needed money. But I just resisted and I refused to fall to that temptation.
How much of the victim mentality went into either you or people that you knew? Because it would seem that in a situation that you described, with drugs around, friends dying, no food, no real guy in the house, it would be really easy to go, I'm just a victim of society. I'm going to blame
Mhm.
whatever, the white man, the black man, the green man, whatever it is. It doesn't make much of a difference.
Right.
But as long as you're a victim, you seem
Right.
to have resolved yourself of all of these issues because you no longer need to take responsibility, which to me would be the first pillar of being a guy, a man.
Right. Hmm.
You know,
And so your question is what? How did I navigate that, or how did I feel about that? What?
yeah. What did you feel that you were a victim? Did you feel that how did you
No,
navigate if you did?
it was divine intervention. Remember I told you I didn't meet a white child till I was 12.
Hmm.
The reason I didn't meet a white child till I was 12 because we had so many schools within our community. They were integrating the schools at the time, and they sent us to a middle school, Thomas Jefferson Middle School, which was, it seemed like it was forever, far, far away, but it was only like a 15, 20-minute drive. But in our neighborhood, you didn't have to go far. We didn't have a car.
Hmm.
So it was when I was 12 years old. And so I've been blessed that I've been able to avoid that because of my mother. When I went to that school, I was shocked because I was excited about seeing white kids for the first time. But I was shocked because I knew we didn't have a lot, but I didn't know we were actually poor because I was always around poor people all the time. So
Hmm.
no one had anything, unless you were a criminal, So, but when I got to Thomas Jefferson Middle School, I saw there were black kids, white kids, Jewish kids, Latino kids, Italian kids, all had more than what we had, which kind of made me confused because I thought, okay, so this can't be just a black condition if black kids have more than I have going to this white school. So of course I go home and I have questions for my mom. Now I got to tell you, I was in tears because I started hearing kids talk about stuff that they had, like they had their own room with a door on it and everything. And I'm like, wow, they got two parents in the home and they have food in the refrigerator and all this other stuff. So I'm thinking, what in the world? My mom's been keeping a secret from me that we're poor. And so when I get home, I'm crying. And I asked my mom, Michael, I said, Mama, why are we poor? And to answer your question, my mom solved that problem, nipped this in the bud very quickly. But and she didn't know what she was doing, but I knew it had to be God's hand on her. And she confirmed that later on after I asked her when I was graduated from college. I said, Mama, why are we poor? And this is what she said, Michael. She put her head down and it looked like I thought it was in shame. She told me later she was praying, but she put her head down. She says, baby, I don't know. It could have been something that I did or didn't do, or something that I should or shouldn't have done. But I tell you this, baby, if you refuse to accept this, you will never be poor again. Because some of us have accepted this. We've accepted this, but you don't have to. Now, you said that you taught school, Michael. Did you catch what my mom did? Now, my mom was a teenage mother, so she's only had to be 28 years old at the time. Did you catch what she did in answering that question? And people say, Joe, what's the big deal? It's the number of personal pronouns she used. Because Mike, you know what she didn't say? She could have said, the reason why we're poor because your dad walked out on us when you were only 2 years old. Joe, we're poor because you're black and you live in Liberty City. Joe, you're poor because they won't give me a raise on my job and no one can expect to live off this salary. Joe, it's the government. It's the white man. It's whatever. She could have used any rationalization to explain why we were poor, and she didn't. And because she didn't, she never gave me a reason to use an excuse for our economic condition. And so from that day forward, I just believed that then I had a choice. I didn't have to be in this community. I didn't have to live this way. And so from that point forward, I decided to accept responsibility for the choices that I was going to make. And to the point now, Michael, that this is so ingrained in me. And now I'm 50 years old that I have a vanity car tag, which I know a lot of people don't like, but on the back of my car tag, it says no excuse on the back of my car tag. And which either makes you a person who steps up, accept responsibility, or you're stupid for putting no excuse in the back of your car tag. Because every time I get pulled over by a cop, they start laughing because they can't wait to hear what excuse I'm going to use while I was speeding, right? And of course, you know what I do when they pull me over? So tell me, why are you going so fast? I say, write the ticket, man.
I had
No excuse, write the ticket.
I had an experience with Broward County Sheriff. I was driving really fast and zipping in and out all over the place. And the sheriff's office really is involved with state crime. They're not like traffic cops, but I must have been going pretty good at it for one of the deputies to pull me over. I was also concerned at the time about my daughter because my daughter had just gotten a very bad blood report from the pediatrician. She must have been 2, 3, and there was a talk that there may be some liver stuff going on. I wanted to get home, so I was driving like a freaking maniac. And he pulled me over, and I rolled down the window, and I looked at him in the face, and I said, "Officer, thank you so much for stopping me. I didn't realize how fast I was going." And this guy looked at me like,
what?
He said nothing. I broke his program. You know what I mean? What would I just he had? So I said, I guess people don't tell you that much. And he said, no. He said, "Is what's going on?" I told him, nothing major. My daughter's just not feeling great. I wanted to get home. So he said, "Look, buddy, drive carefully, slow it up, have a good day."
But you know, Michael, when I was talking about, asked my mom, I said, when I graduated from college, I had to graduate top of my class early. I was voted student of the year on my campus. So I had to, turn my life around coming out of the hood. And I remember asking my mom about that day at Thomas Jefferson. I said, Mama, I said, I want to thank you for telling me that when I asked you that question about why were we poor. And I said, but I want to ask you, I said, you were only what, 28 years old? What made you tell me that? I said, because it changed my life. And she told me, she said, baby, I didn't know what I was saying. I said, what do you mean you don't know what you were saying? She says, Joe, I thought it was funny that you didn't know that we were poor. I'm thinking, how could he be 12 and not know we're not that we're poor? And she said, but when you asked that question, I realized you were serious. And I put my head down and I prayed. I thought because it was shame. She said, I prayed and I asked God, I said, God, this boy is serious. What do you want me to tell him? What do I say to him? And she said that God spoke to her heart and told her, accept responsibility. Don't make an excuse. And my mom said, Joe, why is that such a big deal? I didn't even know why I did it. I said, Mama, I understand now why God spoke to you to tell me that. I said, because if you would have used one excuse that day on me as a 12-year-old young black male growing up in Liberty City, I would have used that excuse for the rest of my life, for mediocrity, for failure, for irresponsibility. I said, Mom, it changed my life. That's why it's my car tag, because I tell people I put it on my car tag, not for other people, but for me to hold me accountable, to understand that I may not control what you do to me, but I can always control how I respond to it.
Sure, sure. It's crazy because people think that they have free will. I don't believe that there is really much free will. The only free will you really have is who you're going to be hanging out with, you know? And well, that's 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 your free will. Who are you going to buddy up with? Who's going to be your mate for life? Who's those are the kind of choices who you're going to be with. But I think otherwise. I think things they don't happen to happen. I don't think anything really happens to happen. But I think that the people don't have really a lot of control in their lives, but this is one thing they can control, and most people really don't. Um, that's why uh, I I was always very picky with friends, and I can pretty honestly tell you that I really don't have many friends because to me, my definition of a friend was something um, greater than just some person to be with to go ahead and watch a movie. It's my favorite friends are the ones that tell me when I'm right, tell me when I'm wrong, try to help me out, don't let me get into trouble. So those are the kinds of people I tended to hang out with growing up because I had the proclivity to being in trouble. Um, in my household, we were lower middle class. We did have food, we did have all of those things. Um, but I was raised in a house where one of my grandparents was a criminal, semi heavy duty criminal. Um, Used to pay hitmen at it's a Rahway State Prison. Used to go visit some people. I mean, some pretty intense stuff. So I don't know if that was part of it, but I had strong friends who kind of led me into the right way because I could have easily fallen into the wrong stuff. I think my gift from God was that I was able to play saxophone pretty well. And that just brought me into a whole different area, a whole different mindset, and a whole different way of being. And so I thank God for that. I thank God for everything, you know. But
We were talking about the angels. I think about some of my quote, and I put it in air quotes, friends, because I didn't have a lot of those friends like that. But I did have friends who were shady characters, who were making a lot of bad choices, who are probably now dead or in prison. But even they had their angel moments with me when I would, because I was a pretty decent kid. I mean, I was very respectful, never got in trouble, that kind of thing. But you saw what other kids were doing. You thinking, wow, I want to hang out with them because they like they're having fun. I had friends who, even as bad as they were, had enough sense to say, no, Joe, you don't want to go with us here. No, Joe, you stay behind.
mhm.
No, Joe, we don't want you coming up here. No, you don't do this. And I would get mad at them because they wouldn't let me hang out with them. And I didn't realize now that even they had a moment to say, as bad as I'm acting and the bad things I'm doing, I'm talking about they're committing crimes, they're carjacking people, they're robbing people, but they're saying, no, Joe,
Not
this
for
isn't
you.
for you.
Not for you.
This is not for you. And now I can look back now and thinking, I used to get mad at them, man. I used to cuss them out. And now I realize, wait a minute, they saved my freaking life but keep me out of trouble. So they made sure that I made it out. So it goes back to your original question that no one, I had to get out and made it out because I knew that those streets were gonna get me if I didn't get out of there.
Sure. It was you were the streets. So,
Yeah.
well, luckily you made the right choice because, like you said, you never know where you would have wound up. You know,
Yeah.
had things been a lot different than they wound up being. How long you married?
I have this is I'm on my second marriage, and that's part of even my story with Real Men Connect, an organization that we built. It was Real Men Connect was birthed out of pain and out of hindsight to say, wow, how did I screw up my life so bad? And God, what do you want me to do with it now? I was married for 16 years to one of my, I wouldn't say my high school sweetheart because I was a freshman and she was in high school, but I was her high school sweetheart. We had known each other for 20 years, married for 16 years, and I ruined that marriage. But I'm currently married now, and we just celebrated our 7-year anniversary yesterday. And so, but that first marriage and how I devastated that marriage is part of the inspiration that led me to starting Real Men Connect.
What happened?
Well, I told you where I grew up and how I grew up. No male in the household, and typically, you're going to go either way. When you're a boy like that, growing up without a man in your home, a father figure in your home, you tend to harbor a lot of anger, and it's going to be expressed in several ways. Usually, it's expressed in violence towards other people that can end up putting you in jail or getting you killed. And a lot of my friends, that's how they express it that way. But another way is to suppress it, in which you say to yourself and deny it, I'm not, it's okay. I'm not that in bad of a shape. And you decide that I'm going to now compensate for this by trying to overachieve in other areas. And so my remedy for dealing with my father wound, because my dad left it too. And there was one man who briefly came into my life when I was 12 years old and who was the first man to ever tell me that he loved me. He sexually abused me as a child for 3 years. And so I didn't tell a soul, didn't tell a soul. And so my remedy was not to go out there and rob and steal and kill and destroy stuff. My thing was, okay, I'm not going to trust men. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have so much success that men will have to respect me. So I overcompensated with education, getting my doctorate degree before I was 30 years old. I did it with compensation, making over $250,000 when I was in my 20s. I did it with occupation. I worked for the Florida governor's office as a communication director when I was 26 years old, started my first business at 22, and the list goes on and on. Now I'm leading up to how my marriage ended. So now I don't need a dad. I don't need a man. I've made it. Now I'm successful. No one's ever going to know about the past that I overcame and what I came out of. They don't have to know about my shame. Well, I get married at 22 years old and I take all this baggage into that marriage. And even though I was, quote, a good guy, what I didn't have a clue on is how to be a husband, how to be a father, because now I had a kid too. And as you know, Michael, that I don't care how the media paints the picture of marriage being running through a pasture with a ribbon in your hand and there's rainbows and unicorns. There's going to be disagreement. There's going to be things that you need to be able to handle as a man. And I was ill equipped. And I did not tell her about my past. I didn't tell her about the abuse. I didn't tell her about the abandonment issues. And when I couldn't deal with the stress of marriage, I imploded on her. When I say imploded on her, now some men, they lash out in violence. I didn't do that. What I lashed out in is running to other women to validate my masculinity. Because remember, my masculinity, quote and unquote, was taken from me. And now I'm overcompensating to show that I'm a man. So I thought as many women as you can sleep with. And Michael, it got so bad that I tell people if they've heard a Wilt Chamberlain story, I say, I'm
Uh-huh.
not Wilt Chamberlain, but I could have been his apprentice.
Uh-huh. I understand.
I was with when your ex-wife when you're trying to save the marriage and your ex-wife asks you how many and you tell her to stop counting after 150, something's wrong. And so obviously it took a lot for her to try to overcome that. And she couldn't. She didn't want to try to rebuild the trust after that. She saved herself for me for marriage. And then I just shattered her heart in a million pieces. And so I had no idea how to be a man. So I lost everything. I lost my wealth. I lost my quote secure career. I destroyed my family. I lost my marriage. And by the grace of God, I didn't lose my health. I'm shocked to this day that I did not contract some type of sexual disease because not all the sex I had was protected. And so I thought my life was over. And so that's what ruined the marriage. And then in the pit of me being down, I'm crying out to God, said, God, okay, you win. I can't do this. I have no idea how to be a man. And I'm afraid to ask anybody, but now I'm ready. I need help. And he sent it to me in just a miraculous way with a young man who I met when I was lecturing on a college campus who introduced me to his dad. And I'm giving you the short end of the version of the story, but it changed my life. And that man came to my life and showed me how to be a real man. And now it launched me into now being able to provide that for other men who were like me, even if they're older now, who says, I have no idea how to be a husband, how to be a father, how to spiritually lead my home, how to be a man of integrity, how to be a man of character, how to put my family in right order and not be this man who has to have a huge bank account to feel good about himself. And so that is the short of it, of what happened to me and how it led me to Real Men Connect.
You've mentioned, and I think I have also, about taking responsibility. Are there any like pillars of masculinity, or not of being a man, that you could that are pretty simple ideas and constructs to discuss? Because I agree with you thoroughly. Um, you said it more eloquently than I will now, but basically, you can be 35 years old and you're just a boy living inside of a man's body, and you have no
That's what I
conception of
was.
anything like that.
That's exactly what I was. That's exactly what I was. And from the outside looking in, oh, this is, and I mean, and people looked up to me, Michael. That's the crazy thing, is that they admired and respected me. But I tell men now, I say, you know how I measure man? I don't measure man by the size of his bank account or his net worth. I measure man by the smile on his wife's face when he walks into the room. Because it's because they know you when you're not at your best. And if you want to impress me as a man, don't show me all your achievements. Show me your family. I want to know, do they look at you with admiration, or do they look at you like with this in disgust? And so, yeah, you're right. That's what I was. I was in my mid to late 30s. And here I was thinking, how did I get here? How did I have all this quote success, but I'm a failure? How did that happen? How did I become a successful male, but a failure as a man? And that's what I knew I needed help with. But you're getting
Nice.
ready to ask me a question now.
No, no, this line of thought is interesting to me, because I know I've been in crowds where there's maybe hundreds of people, and I'm in there with the crowd, and yet I feel like I'm alone.
Mm-hmm,
I know I've been into houses that were really beautiful and gorgeous, but they're not homes. I
mm-hmm,
know that I
mm-hmm,
know that
mm-hmm.
I've made a good deal of money maybe 20 years ago, yet I felt poor.
Right.
So there's what's it's always like it's so what's the piece? What's the thing that's missing? And for me, the thing that was missing was an internal feeling. The best I could say it from my perspective would be light. There was light missing. I needed to get
Mm-hmm,
some type of light, not necessarily a physical light, but a light of purity, some type of intelligence or a force that could help run through me, that would help me actually understand what my surroundings were and how to deal with them and cope with them. Uh, Myself, when I was growing up, I was rather independent. I started working as a musician away from home when I was 14. So the whole idea of cooking by myself, doing my own clothing, making my own bed, all that stuff was easy. Was easy. And I remember when I was dating, I was peculiar in that I would go out with someone if I felt, in the Italian word for disagita, something in your stomach that doesn't feel good. The second I would feel agita with any woman I was with, that was the last date. That was the last date. If I didn't feel good about something, I was done. And I finally met a woman that didn't give me agita, upset stomach,
mm-hmm.
gas, however you want to look at it. And uh, I would try to pin her. I'd say, "How come you didn't show up? You said you're going to be here at 2 o'clock." She said, "Don't you remember yesterday I told you that I couldn't make it at 2? It would have to be at 4." Oh. And I kept on doing that for a while, realizing that this woman is true to her word. She's not into playing games. She really does want a good relationship, and I wound up marrying her. And I told her when we married, I said, "There's one thing I will never do, never, ever, ever to you." I said, "I will never break a trust with you, never." I said, "If I'm unhappy with you sexually and I want to fool around, I'm going to tell you."
Hmm.
Said, because if I do that, then and I have, he said 150. That's pretty good. If I if I start to go out and I'm messing around with someone, you're not going to hear it from anyone else. No one else going to tell you. I'm going to be the one to tell you, because at that point, if you wanted to get divorced, I could understand it. But I've never broken trust. If you want to then get back together, there's an absolute and total roadway to do it, because that trust just has not been broken. And I've been married. I'm going on next month will be 37 years.
Wow. Wow.
Thir-
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it'll be 37 years. I've only had one wife, and she just went out to hang out with some of her friends while I go ahead and do my broadcasts. Um, and so I feel really, really blessed in that way. I really do. I really do. But there was a spiritual component that came into my life, which I think really, really helped. And obviously, I noticed when I go to your website, you pretty much you're preaching. I didn't listen. I'm looking at the video of you because I have your website up. Connection, community, and coaching for men that want to win, and what matters most. That's a really
Right.
important statement. Is your group, though? Would you say is it Christian based, so that people who are not who don't believe in Jesus, can they be helped by you too?
Yeah, our the people who we attract obviously are Christian men because
Oh, sure.
I'm faith based. But as far as no, I mean, I don't care who they are. If they're looking to, because I think every man needs connection, community, and coaching. Every man needs that because the way we were built to be relational human beings. And so if any man is attractive, if he's a non-Christian, great. But he's going to always, I call it, he's going to get a Christian perspective. And if he's okay with it, I'm okay with it. And so even when I'm being, if I'm looking for somebody to mentor me in business, if they're a Muslim, I don't have a problem with them. I'm looking at it for, I need the business advice that he has, but I know it
Sure.
comes from a Muslim perspective. But for me, no, it doesn't matter. It's all on him. I would never turn anybody away. But they know I don't have a hidden agenda. I have a Christian agenda, which is I father filter what I do. And that has got me to where I am now. At least I call it my story. Mike, the way I summarize my story, I say I went from rags to riches to ruin to redemption. And so this is the redemption piece of my story. And it was my faith that got me to redemption.
That's awesome. Want to watch a video with me? I have a video I would really like your opinion on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Technically, you are considered a man when you reach a certain age, when your body begins to show certain characteristics of our elevated testosterone. That includes increased facial hair, deepening of the voice, and increased muscle mass. However, these are all the surface level cues. What does it truly mean to be a man beyond outside form? It's a question that has intrigued me as a young man trying to find his way in this world. When I look at modern society, I am horrified to find that many so-called men are simply boys playing at being men. The way they carry themselves betrays them. The way they treat others betrays them. And most detrimentally, their lack of responsibility exposes them. So why do we have a society in which a large deal of men resemble many of my childhood chums? It could be due to a lack of fathers or father figures in many households. It could be due to fathers that have failed them by failing to teach the main tenets of being a man. It also could be due to the changing world in which we're living in, where feminist ideals have left many men emasculated and afraid to express and carry themselves like men. It could be many things, but I do not have the answer for this. So how does an authentic man carry himself, you might be asking? It is in my opinion that there are three main tenets one will have to understand on his path from boyhood to manhood. The first being accepting responsibility for your actions and situation in life. You see, kids make excuses. They cry when things don't go their way. As a man, no one gives a fuck about if things go your way. It's up to you to change your situations.
No
If you're not happy
excuses.
with them, no one is here to spoon feed you. No one is here to piggyback you through life. You must learn to be accountable for your actions and their consequences. Only then will you be able to shape your destiny. Being accountable means not blaming others for your failures. Being accountable means understanding that you're in your situation because of the choices you made and not because of anyone else. Simply the choices you made. Certain aspects of life you're not in control of, but you're always in control of your reactions to the stimulus of life. And your consequences are your choices. There have been people in similar situations such as you that have still managed to do well for themselves, that have still managed to go against adversity and get the upper hand. So who are you blaming? Take responsibility and do what you need to do to get where you need to go. What are the things that you will not accept? Is it people disrespecting you? Or dating girls purely because you find them visually pleasing? You need to have boundaries and things that you would stand for, things that you value most in life. Malcolm X once said, I quote, "A man who stands for nothing will fall for anything," end quote. Don't let other people walk all over you. Have set boundaries. One of the worst things that you can do is become a blank slate. That is someone who has no values of their own, no beliefs of their own, that just goes with the crowd. This is pathetic. As a man, you should stand for something. You should be the embodiment of your values. What is it that you value the most? What is it that you won't accept? These are questions you always ask yourself and things that you take very seriously. So ask yourself right now, what are your boundaries? What are your values? What makes you different from the next guy across the street? You should have something different because your path is different than his. Your path is different than everyone else's. You should have your own individual path, because if you're someone who doesn't have values, who doesn't have boundaries, it's going to be awfully easy for you to be dragged around in society's machine, in society's rat race. You're going to live your life doing work for other men that have a mission for you if you don't have a mission for yourself. And you're going to die with regret, having known that you didn't accomplish the things that you wanted to accomplish because you never took them too seriously. You were a blank slate and you paid the ultimate price for it, wasting your life. Okay, and the third thing is having a mission in life. The ultimate goal is to die having accomplished that which you wanted to accomplish. To die well is having improved humanity with your existence, and not to have simply lived to eat, shit, piss, and sleep. Although it may be difficult to figure out what your mission is in life, it is the ultimate goal. Your mission is your final frontier. Now, I'm not here to tell you what your mission should be. That's up to you. It could simply be to work hard to ensure your family lives well. It could be to develop a cure for cancer, perhaps to become the best boxer in Switzerland. The point is, you need to channel your masculine energy to a goal of your choosing. You need a mission. So those are my 3 pillars for manhood. Of course, I will elaborate on these in further videos, and I'm sure there are more, but for now, that's what I have. Please come.
So what do you think?
It's typical what I hear a lot of, at least mainstream, a lot of quote experts talk about, man, because he's right, but there's some components that are missing. But he's right on all those counts: accept responsibility, stand for something, have a mission in life. But the reason why we're here, and I say here, in the condition we're in, where we see all 2 out of 3 boys are growing up in the African American and Latino community without fathers in the home. 1 out of 3 in America with white, black, and all of them combined growing up with fathers in the home, is because there's some other components that are missing when it comes to manhood. So I applaud him on that video, but even he's missing some of it as well.
What parts do you think are missing? Is there anything that's really intense that's missing?
Well, I'll share with you, and you'll see why it will make sense. And I have to say, I'm plagiarizing because my thing is, think about this. Let's look from a common sense standpoint, Michael. If I want to be a man, you want to be a man, um, wouldn't it behoove us to study, okay, who was the best man as a measuring stick? Are you following me on this?
Yes, I am.
That's called the role model. So obviously, if you want to be a man, you say, where can I find the best role model? Well, I've read Malcolm X. I've read about Martin Luther King. I've read about other great men. But guess who I haven't found who's a better man? The best man I've come across is Jesus Christ. And no man compares to him, to me. Regardless of your religious belief, nobody's thinking he was a myth. They believe he walked this planet. Even Gandhi walked this planet, but he wasn't good as Jesus. And so my thing is, okay, whether I believe in Christianity or not, I'm going to study the perfect man, the man without sin, this man who people now started such a movement that even the people who don't believe him kind of say, I got to respect him. That's the kind of man I want to be, because not everybody's going to approve and agree with you. So let's look at his life. And basically, and I'm going to reiterate something he said, but I'm going to tell you the part that's missing. Now, he started with the first one, accept responsibility. I agree with that. Now, the way I look at it is that what is accepting responsibility? Is it just taking responsibility for your choices like my mom did? Does that make her a good man? No, what a real man does, he takes responsibility by leading his family. Follow me, family. Let me lead by example. I'm going to let you up. That's taking responsibility. I'm not going to let the government do it. I'm not going to let Michael do it. I'm not going to let the school system do it. I'm going to take responsibility for leading my family. So he leads his family. Jesus led his family spiritually. This is what Joe, he wasn't married, but Jesus had relationships, which he did life with, men he did life with, and he led them spiritually. And that means if you're going to accept responsibility, that means you're rejecting passivity. Now, here's the second thing. And he's talking about standing up for something. I wouldn't call it standing up for something, which I do believe. That to me, that doesn't really make you a man. But I look at Jesus, because Jesus stood for something, but that's not what we remember Jesus for. Jesus also loved and served others sacrificially. To me, you want to know a real man, Michael? It's a person who says, it's not about me. Me laying my life down for you. Me being willing to say, what can I do for you? It's loving you when you're the least lovable. It's serving you sacrificially. Did Jesus do that for us? Well, in our faith, he laid down his life for us. So to me, that's accepting responsibility. So he not only does he lead his family spiritually, he loves and serves others sacrificially. Now, this goes into what he's saying about standing up. I think a real man does stand up for something, but it goes deeper than that. To me, a real man like Jesus did, he leaves an eternal legacy. See, Michael, you can take a stand today and we forget about you tomorrow. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Because depends on what you stood up for.
Mm-hmm.
You stood up because you believed in something. That's great. But if you want to be a real man, guess what? Not only will you stand up for something, but guess what? They're going to be talking about you generations from now.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm living a life in a way, Michael, that when I leave a legacy, I'm not going to meet my great-great-grandkids. But if I live right and I live faithfully by leading my family, loving and serving others sacrificially, I'm going to leave a legacy that they'll still say, wow, I never met my great-great-grandfather, Joe Martin, but man, he seemed like an incredible man. Now, I would say Martin Luther King did that. But Jesus definitely did it because we were feeling the ripples effects even today. But here's the key part that I think reason why we're in the position we're in today. And very rarely do I hear men bring this part up. But when I do, Michael, you're going to say, Joe, duh, that makes perfect sense. A real man not only leads his family, loves and serves others sacrificially, leaves an eternal legacy. Wait for it, Michael. He teaches other men how to do the same. See, you can do all that stuff that man said, but if you didn't teach it to your son, what difference does it make? That's what Jesus did. He called it making disciples. That's where we go back to the coaching part of how you mentor. You have to teach the next generation how to do the same. That's what's lacking in our inner cities because the father's not there. They're not teaching their sons how to be men. So when, I think it was in the beginning that what makes a man, here's my simple, and I could be totally wrong, but this is my simple way of how you know you're a real man. You want to know how you're a real man, Michael? When you're able to teach another boy how to be one. Any questions?
Yeah, no, simple.
If
Very,
you
very
can't
simple.
teach a boy how to be one, you're not one yet.
That's it. That's it. You
And
can't
see,
teach what you don't
nobody
have.
talks about that. Yeah, I don't care about your shaving. I don't care about you getting a license, how much sex you have, how many houses you buy. Can you teach another boy, say, and tell him, follow me, do what you see me do, speak the way you hear me speak, stand up the way you see me stand up? I want to hear him on that video say, now teach the next generation how to do this. That's why we're just talking about the problem, because nobody's teaching other people how to do it.
Sure.
And so
sure.
that, to me, you want to be a real man, step up and teach another boy how to be one.
Well, I assume you've done that with your son. What does your son do? You said you have an adult child now.
Yeah, he's in college right now.
So he's in college. He's studying
And-
anything in particular?
Well, he's studying business.
Business.
And
Okay.
a good example would be him, because a lot of parents think that, okay, I've done a great job as a parent if my kids are, quote, successful. Your kids becoming successful doesn't make you a successful parent. There's so many instances of parents who are great parents, their kids in prison. And there's examples of parents like I had who were great, who had a lot of issues, and
Sure.
my sister and I made it. And so, but the thing is, the difference is, can you go to that child and say, do you know how to? Did your dad show you? Here's a great example. And I've done this in churches, but I can do this in any arena where I would go to a church and let's say there's 500 men in it. And I say, all men, please stand. And I ask them this question: how many of you stand up if you want to be a successful husband, a successful father, and a leader that your kids and your family respect? They all stand up. 100%, Michael, stand up. And then I ask the women, watch this. Then I ask these same men, remain standing if you had a male in your home who taught you how to do it by his example. Guess what percentage in a church of men are standing up? Less than 10%. Any questions, Michael?
That's pretty crazy. That's just
see
pretty
that
crazy.
video doesn't address that. See, the video doesn't address, those are, guess what? Those men are accepting responsibility, but they weren't shown how to do it. So to me, it's not real unless you're passing it on and teaching the next generation. See, my son, if you go to my son, he can end up in prison. But when he's behind those bars, ask him, did your dad show you by example? Did he lead you by example? He would say, yes, that's my responsibility. I can't expect the school system to do that. Matter of fact, I don't want them to do it. I want to do it.
Sure.
And so to me, that's the missing component, that we're not teaching other men how to be men. You know why? Because we weren't shown how to be men ourselves.
Okay. And but you in essence you have your own little school going on. If people want to learn more about what you're doing, how would they do it? Is it just a matter of going to the website? What goes on with that?
Yeah, they can just go to our website at realmenconnect.com. That's realmenconnect.com. And we have resources and everything if they want to keep in contact with me or look at what we're doing in our community. You mentioned about having friends. I have a saying that a man is only as strong as the number of stronger men he has in his life. And hear me on this when I say this, Michael. I don't care how well adjusted a man is or how good he tells me he is. When I ask him, how many men in your life do you have who you love unconditionally, they love you unconditionally, and at your worst, they'll love you the best. And when you deserve it the least, they'll love you the most. And to me, the number of men he has in life, to me, tells me how strong that man is. I don't care how good a man he is. He's only as strong as the number of stronger men that he has.
Well,
And
but
if
I
you
better
don't
start to
believe
work
it-
out then, because I
But,
couldn't
you know,
name I couldn't name to you a hell of a lot, you know. My father, obviously.
let me put it in practical reality for you. If you've ever worked out, you mentioned work out, but let's say you're in the gym. You can always outbench me, Michael, if you have more spotters. Doesn't matter how strong I am. See, Michael, this is what I'm talking about having how strong you are. So you've been married for 37 years, and that's great because you've done a great job. Most men haven't been married for 37 years. But here's what most men can't say. If you decide that you were going to break a trust because you said you'll never do it, but guess what? You are human, and believe it or not, you're capable, Michael.
Oh, sure.
You're capable. See, I don't want men to think that because they messed up, they've blown it. No, Michael ain't Superman. Ask his wife. He's capable. He just hasn't done it yet. But here's the thing. If you thought about doing it, I want to know how many men would show up on your lawn to stop you from doing it. That tells me how strong that man is. Because I'm telling you, if I wanted to divorce my wife, there'd be at least just in my city alone, about 30 guys who show up on my lawn to make sure that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. To me, that's manhood. Man cannot be a man by himself. He needs help. You're only as strong as the number of men you have in your life. And no good man can become a great man without the help of better men in his life.